I hadn't started speaking yet, so you can't wait.
Okay, well, I know that this is a Friday night for so many people, so we'll make sure to get started and promptly right here at 6:30. But I just wanted to welcome everybody for joining us here. I'm Heather O'Reilly, as I'm sure that you guys know. And why am I doing this? Why are we all here on this Zoom call? Obviously, as you guys know, this is a really important time for our country. This is an important time for North Carolina in particular. And, you know, as an athlete, I know that I have a incredible opportunity. Some people use the word responsibility. I don't like using that word. I like using the word opportunity to make the world a better place through our platform. So I knew that I wanted to do something to make sure that people were getting out to vote, that they knew what the issues were around this election. And for me, this is one very tangible way that I can learn more about this candidate, Josh Stein, and learn more about what our great state of North Carolina needs. I'm a Jersey girl, but I live in North Carolina. I played at the University of North Carolina, and I'm now the coach there. And I love the state of North Carolina. So this place means a great deal to me. And that's why I wanted to learn more about the man of the hour, or this is only going to be a half hour, so don't worry, everyone, Josh Stein. But before we get to Josh, I wanted to introduce Becky Sauerbrunn. A lot of you guys know Becky if you're soccer fans on this call. Becky's a dear friend of mine. She, captained the U.S. team for a long time. She's very engaged in so many things besides soccer. And I think most importantly, she's an educated citizen, and she really wants to, like I said, make the world a little bit better through this platform that we have. So a couple of months ago, the U.S. national team had a game where all the women on the team were asked to wear names on the back of their shirts of women that they felt were trailblazers. And Becky chose RBG. And when she chose RBG, I knew that Becky was somebody that got it, that had a lot of perspective. You know, as much as I appreciated Cardi B and some others that were on the back of some jerseys, I appreciated that Becky understood that, to make your dreams and your visions for your country come true, you need people that are resilient, that know the law of the land and know how to get things done. So I'm so happy that Becky's here with me. And Becky, why don't you take yourself off mute and explain why you wanted to jump on this Zoom, even though right now you actually live in Portland, Oregon, and not North Carolina.
Yeah, thanks, Heo. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to be UVA grad, currently living in Oregon and being on the Zoom call. I think my only connection to North Carolina is probably because I've lost a bunch of soccer games to you. But Heo and I came together along with a bunch of former and current national team players, and we were just wondering, like, what could we do with our influence to help bring awareness to this upcoming election? And we didn't only want to focus on the national presidential election. We also wanted to bring awareness to different elections happening on the state level. And so that is why I'm here right now, throwing my support and hoping that Josh Stein will be re-elected as North Carolina's Attorney General.
I just wanted to say hi to you, Becky. I'm a huge fan. I'm also a huge fan of you, Heather. Hi.
That's awesome.
Also, Heather, I'm a huge fan of you too.
Heather, you're on mute.
Rookie.
Well, we knew that was going to happen at least once, right?
Have you ever done Zoom
but
before,
that reminds me, all of you guys are on mute right now. And how we're going to do this is Becky and I are going to lead question and answer for Josh. It'll be more of a conversation. And I think at the end, if we have a few minutes, if that's okay with you, Josh, we'll open the floor. If there's anything that people want to touch on, you can also ask Becky and I questions, but I think that it would make a little bit more sense to ask Josh the questions. But if you have questions for any of us, hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end for those. So the moment that you've been waiting for. I just wanted to briefly introduce Josh. So Josh is running for re-election of the North Carolina Attorney General position. So 4 years he's been at the post, and he's looking for another 4, I guess then, Josh, right?
Exactly right. 4-year term.
Exactly right. And Josh lives in Raleigh with his wife, Anna, and he has 3 kids. And Josh, before that, served on the state Senate for 7 years, 8 years?
Yes, 7.5. I quit. So I could
7.5. Excellent. Very cool. Well, from, looking into the last couple of years in particular, since you've been at the post, a lot of the issues that Josh has really thrown his weight behind has been consumer protections in North Carolina. So making sure that the citizens were not getting scammed. All those robocalls that we all know and hate. Josh has been fighting against, making sure that seniors in North Carolina are not being taken advantage of. I also saw, Josh, that, I'll let you talk a little bit more about this, but unfortunately in North Carolina, we had a major backlog in sexual assault tests that Josh thought was completely irresponsible. So made sure that that was protected, and a bunch of other environmental concerns, certainly. And Becky and I have a lot of questions about some of the things that you have chosen to fight against for North Carolina. So Josh, why don't I just open it up to you to just kind of say hello, and most importantly, why do you care about soccer so much? Did you play soccer? Do you still play soccer? Who do you support? What's with the soccer connection?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out if the right verb is play. I mean, I used to go on the field, and there was a round ball and people would kick it. And I guess you could characterize as what I did as playing. But I think really among the 3 of us, I mean, we have these national stars. Among the 3 of us, I think we've won 4 gold medals and 2 World Cups. Is that right?
You're good at math as well, Josh.
Yeah. So I played soccer in Chapel. I grew up in Chapel Hill, so I was a Chapel High Tiger. And I see Carolyn Daldorf, my friend on here, mother of Allison Barkley, finance person extraordinaire. We had a great soccer team in Chapel Hill. 1983, we were the amateur champs. We didn't beat UNC, but we beat every other amateur team in the state, private and public, and it was a great, when Bruce Springsteen sings that song "Glory Days" about the guys who just relive high school, that's exactly what happens to me and my friends when we get together, because it was the apex of my life was that soccer championship. But in 91, I was home for the summer, and I see my parents, Adam and Jane, are on the call here. And I was home for the summer, and I played sunset soccer. And I don't know, Heather, if you've ever played there. It's just kind of a duffer league. And I was on a team with Carla Overbeck and Wendy Gabauer. And there was another team called Headbeaters, and they were always the champs. And there were 2 other women from the national team who were on the team as well. And I've never been on a team where the ball could be delivered with such precision. It was just amazing. And we won that championship. And that was one of my favorite games of all time, was that championship game. So yes, I live in the past. I wish I could kick the ball now. I actually played semi-pro soccer in Zimbabwe for a couple of years after college. For the Harare Holiday Inn Football Club. And when I was over there playing, I just destroyed my ankle and had 2 surgeries. And so I've had to give up my boots, so to speak.
Oh, no.
I made it to 48. I wanted to play till 50, but I started losing the cartilage in my ankle.
Oh, bummer. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about your glory days there then, Josh.
We can keep talking about my soccer if you want.
Well, I guess one more question about soccer. I mean, Becky and I especially love the game that we play because it's so global and, touches so many people from all kinds of people in the United States, and people from all around the world. So yeah, I guess like how can the soccer community that we have on this Zoom call sort of help what you're doing, and how do you think that the sport can sort of make some headway in some social issues?
I mean, soccer truly is, it's the global language. I think more than any other institution, it's what the world shares. And, you know, I was really fortunate in college. I got to study abroad in Mexico and then in Kenya. And then I mentioned I lived in Zimbabwe. And no matter where I went, if I just joined, you know, on the pitch while people were kicking it around, I immediately had a group of friends. And I joined that Harare Holiday Inn football team because they were playing on the neighborhood field where I was living. And then, you know, I got to travel all over the country and go to places where, you know, I was an oddity, I'll put it that way. And I think it's just a great common language. And I don't know if you've ever heard of, I think, what do they call grassroots soccer? They're out of Dartmouth. I went to Dartmouth and I played JV soccer there for a couple of years. And it was Ethan Zahn, who was the goalie, and Tommy Clark created this wonderful soccer organization that does AIDS research, AIDS education in Southern Africa.
Yeah.
It's a great way to bring kids in through soccer, but then they impart all this public health information about how to stay safe and avoid AIDS. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful sport. And the fact that you and Becky are here shows that you can use your platform that you develop from one place and apply it to another place and make the world a better place. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. Bex, did you want to ask Josh the next question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, since I'm not there in North Carolina, how is the election looking there? Are you
really,
feeling,
exciting? Really exciting. Yeah, I as of this early afternoon, I don't know what the late afternoon numbers were, but as of like 1 o'clock, more than 1 million votes had been cast, had been run through the scanner. And just to put that in context, in 2016, there were 5 million votes cast total. So we're about 20% of where we think the total vote in just a day and a half of early voting and vote by mail. And it's because people are fired up. They are unhappy with the way this country is going, the way the world is going because of our country's failed leadership, and they are desperate for change. And I was at the early voting site yesterday morning. Today it was raining, so it was a little less energy. But yesterday, I mean, people were just, it was almost carnival-like. They were so excited.
Do you feel confident with the mail-in voting process in North Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what the president has been doing to undermine people's faith in the way the elections are carried out and the results. I mean, he goes around and says, he literally says, the only way I can lose this election if the election's rigged. You can't be a little d Democrat, somebody who believes in what this country is about, and have that belief. Like, I want to win and I'm going to work my tail off to win. I hope I'll win. I think I'll win, but I accept the possibility that I could lose. And if the voters end up voting for my opponent and giving them more votes than I do, then he will win and I will wish him well. Genuinely, I will wish him well. And so I hate what the president is doing, but I don't think the people are buying it. I mean, maybe his subset is. The number of people who've requested mail-in ballots, even though he has denigrated it as a form of voting, is something like 1.3 million in North Carolina, which is just a tremendous number. And almost 600,000 have already cast their ballot. And I know my parents have, and I have, and it's just a really great feeling to know that that ballot has been accepted.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we're in a very emotional and divisive time here, Josh. But you know, let's talk specifically about the Trump administration's policies, and maybe if you can sort of explain to me and Becky and everybody here how some of like the national and federal policies that the Trump administration has put in place actually affect North Carolinians. You know, I just had a son 4 months ago, so I'm Yeah, thank you. I'm, obviously thinking about all sorts of things that I didn't as much before, but things like public education, climate change for the future, things like that. So how has this administration, I think, put some things into place that you're kind of combating now at the state level?
Yeah, and it's an odd, it's an odd situation because the job of Attorney General is to protect the people of their state. And we do this in so many ways. We are engaged in criminal justice issues, promoting reform. I think you mentioned testing the backlog of untested sexual assault kits, protecting children from child sex abusers, fighting the opioid epidemic. And then we protect seniors and consumers. Like you mentioned, we protect people from environmental harm. We protect taxpayers by going after tax cheats and healthcare providers defrauding Medicaid. And we protect people's fundamental rights. And so when it doesn't matter who hurts the people of North Carolina, but when someone, something, some institution that's when I stand up and say, no, this is wrong for the people, and I'm going to oppose you. And unfortunately, too often it has been the federal government. Like, I didn't run to fight the federal government, but when the federal government does things like trying to put oil rigs off the coast of the Outer Banks, or weaken our government's most effective responses to the climate crisis, or make it easier for people to pollute the air and water that we need for life, or restrict women's reproductive rights, or take away people's health care, the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans and the Trump administration are trying to eliminate the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. All the protections, 130 million Americans have a pre-existing condition. Those protections that they have now under the law will be lost. 20 million Americans have health insurance. That will be lost. So if it's things like that, or young people, there are some 28,000 young people in North Carolina who are protected by the DACA program. These are kids who were brought to North Carolina at a very young age. They're not citizens, but President Obama said, we will not deport you. So go ahead and get your education. Go ahead and work and help us build this country, which is your country. And the president wanted to deport those kids. And I went to court and defended them. So it's things like that. It's like he's actively taking steps to make people in North Carolina's lives worse. And I predict when he does it without legal authority, I will stand up. That's what I've tried to do.
Thank you.
Josh, you mentioned kind of social justice. I'm here in Portland, and obviously the situation here has been very public when it comes to Black Lives Matter and the push for social justice. Have you seen specific things in North Carolina?
Yeah, we have, the protests have not been of the intensity as they have been in Portland, but we had amazingly widespread dispersion of protests in North Carolina in the wake of the killing of George Floyd. It was happening in small towns in Republican counties where you really would not expect there to be a Black Lives Matter protest. And so I've been really moved by the depth of the passion of the protesters. I've been to a few myself, and the breadth of people who are protesting. It's not only Black people who are protesting, it's anybody who cares about injustice. And you'd really have to live under a rock if you believed that Black people get the same treatment as white people in our criminal justice system. It doesn't happen there. It doesn't happen in our healthcare system. We're seeing that in the COVID crisis, the disproportionate percentage of African Americans who die of COVID to white people. It's in education, it's in housing, it's in the economy. We have systemic racism in this country, and we must tackle it. And because of my unique role as Attorney General, I want to do everything I can to improve our criminal justice system. And I had a conversation with the governor, and he created a task force for racial equity in the criminal justice system, asking me and Associate Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Anita Earls, to co-chair this effort. And our job is to try to make true the words that are on the face of the U.S. Supreme Court building. The words are not one system of justice for white people and another system of justice for Black and brown people. The words are equal justice under law. And that's what we're trying to achieve here.
That's great.
Going a little bit back to environmental issues, Josh, I think I saw some headlines these last couple of weeks about you bringing some contests to North Carolina. Can you talk a little bit about the most recent lawsuit and how you're trying to protect this beautiful state? I mean, part of the reason why we all love North Carolina is it is beautiful. The climate is amazing. It's clean. It's very peaceful. Here, I'm actually at the beach right now, and I wanted to stay like this for a long, long time. So, how are you protecting the environment in North Carolina?
We filed a lawsuit this week against DuPont and Chemours. Chemours is an offshoot of DuPont. And I don't know if y'all saw or heard of the movie last year, Dark Waters. It starred Mark Ruffalo. And it was about this set of chemicals, this family of chemicals called PFAS. And I won't even try to pretend I can tell you what the chemical perfluoroalkyl chlorinated, whatever. But these are highly persistent chemicals. They do not occur in nature. They're created by labs, and they're around the carbon molecule. They put a whole bunch of carbon molecules together. It's stuff like Teflon pans and Gore-Tex clothes. It repels water. And because of that property of repelling water, it doesn't biodegrade in nature. And when humans consume it, either through drinking water or eating an animal that has drunk it, or a plant that grows from water where it's in the soils, it bioaccumulates. It just continues to add up in the human body. It doesn't ever go away. And it's been known to cause cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, and other serious human illnesses. And DuPont was discharging this into the water and emitting it in the air for decades outside of Fayetteville. And I don't know what beach you're at, Heather, but if you're off the Cape Fear in Brunswick or New Hanover counties, that's the water that people drink down there. And
shoot, that is where I am. I'm in Wrightsville Beach.
Right, you were smack dab there. And so when you turn on the tap, you shouldn't have to worry if your little baby is going to get sick. Like, you just shouldn't have to worry about that. But we cannot make that promise to young people in Eastern North Carolina now. And DuPont knew that they were doing this, and they knew, I allege, that it was harmful to human health. It's going to be insanely expensive to clean this stuff up. And they're the ones who polluted it. They're the ones who should pay to clean it up. That's why I sued them.
Okay. Well, interesting. Also concerning on a
You
personal,
should
as I just made a bottle for my baby. But thank you for holding them to those incredible standards. I think the last question that I had, Becky, and feel free to add anything else, is you know, the LGBTQ community is a community that's very dear and close to me. You know, so many of our peers and colleagues in the soccer community want to feel protected. Our fans want to feel protected. And obviously it was really disheartening and disappointing a few years ago when North Carolina, this place that I love so much, was in the news for being an unwelcoming state, and selfishly to have events moved out of North Carolina, that hurt me. But I clearly understood the reasoning behind organizations and wanting to do that. And I was supportive of it myself. So I guess I wanted to just ask you, like, how far do you think that we've progressed as a state in protecting people? And I know that you and Governor Cooper worked alongside each other to make sure that, you know, we come to a place where everybody feels safe, protected, and they can be themselves. So if you could shed some light on how far things have come, and maybe if more ground needs to be covered.
Yeah, definitely things are better. I mean, this last decade, after the 2010 election, which was a terrible election for Democrats, the Republicans came into the legislature, redistricted, and cemented and expanded their leadership in the General Assembly. And then they proceeded to just rip our state to the far right on all these social issues, whether it's choice or LGBTQ rights, we will forever have the ignominious distinction of being the last state to pass a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. And here's what's terrifying. There are no permanent victories. There just are no permanent victories. All that we've achieved remains at risk. And if Amy Coney Barrett is on the Supreme Court and the Obergefell decision somehow comes back to the Supreme Court on gay marriage, it's possible that they could reverse themselves. And if they did reverse themselves, then North Carolina law is that gay marriage is banned according to the Constitution. That's still in our Constitution. It has not been excised. We are in desperate need of winning up and down the ballot here in North Carolina. It's not only Cooper and it's not only me. We've got to win the Supreme Court. We've got to win the House. We've got to win the state Senate. We need to pass good laws. We need to interpret the North Carolina Constitution to respect the equality of all human beings, irrespective of who they are. It doesn't matter if it's sexuality, gender identity. It doesn't matter if it's race or religion. It doesn't matter what it is. We're all equal. And it requires electing people who are vigilant and prepared to go to war to promote that key equality.
Great.
I have a question for you two before we end. I want you each to tell me your favorite, that soccer memory that when you're on your deathbed, you're just, there's one memory and it pops up and you're like, that was effing awesome.
I could start, Becky, if you want to go. Do you want to start?
No, I want to hear yours because I feel like you've got a couple more than I do.
No, that's false.
Well, you're a defender. I was a defender too, Becky. We didn't get the glory.
Yeah,
Never.
but Becky is one of those defenders that like thinks it's effing awesome to make tackles and like be like the undercover one that just like sweeps up everybody else's problems. That's where Becky and I differ. I am obsessed with praise.
We know you strikers. You hardly run. You only run when you think you can get a goal. We know.
Yeah, exactly. No, my effing awesome moment probably was maybe in the 2012 Olympics in the semifinal against Canada because we were playing at Old Trafford. And at that point, I was a Manchester United fan, although I have recently played for Arsenal in London. And so I sort of switched over my allegiance, although that's basically illegal there, but I did it anyways. But at Old Trafford, and I'm most proud of that game because I came off the bench in that game and only played for like a few minutes. But I provided a really important assist. Abby Wambach played me the ball. I like had to like just hustle, keep it in bounds. And I really worked on crossing for a long, long time. Like, and it's the assist person sort of like never gets like all the love. But I know that I like prepared for that moment. I did the dirty work and I made a play when the team needed me to the most. And I was able to cross it and Alex Morgan scored and we won 4-3 and went on to win the Olympic gold medal. So it was one of those like moments that like, I know that I was like ready. I was very proud of myself. I stayed calm and composed, and to be able to like perform under pressure when the team needed me to was one moment that I thought was pretty neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that meets my standard. All right, Becky.
I mean, that was an epic game. I also only played about like 10 minutes of it, but I was on the field when Heather made that cross, and it was unbelievable moment. For me, I would say most recently 2019 Women's World Cup, playing France in the quarterfinal in Paris, and just being in a completely pro-France, we hate America stadium, and playing against a team we had lost earlier in the year. And it really felt like we were the underdogs going into that game, even though we were the #1 team in the world. So going in there with kind of the deck stacked against us, and the way that we played, and we held strong even when it got really tight near the end, but beating the hosts, that was pretty special for me.
My face is hurting from grinning, just envious that you all have been on the field in these moments.
But you know what, Josh, there has been, incredible highs for Becky and I, but there's also been like tough moments and things that we wish in reflection could have gone better. But I think that that's what separates us as athletes. We're always willing to assess, and we want to get better, and we want to grow. So I guess, to wrap up, I guess, why don't you just share sort of maybe what you're most proud of the last 4 years, and where you feel like you still have some unfinished business that you want to accomplish?
It's not any one thing. I feel like our office and Seth's, my chief of staff, does a tremendous job. It's just filled with really talented people who try to do the right thing. I'll give one teeny example. There's a legal dispute right now over these elections. And what happens when someone sends in a ballot by mail and the mail's either really slow or they made a mistake on the ballot? How do we fix that? How do we cure it? And we reached a resolution to this lawsuit to try to just put it to bed and make sure that the integrity of the elections were protected, but also at the same time, try to make sure every eligible voter who wants to vote has their vote count. And the Republicans are fighting us at every turn. And I had a couple supremely talented lawyers not even sleep last night because they had to file something that was issued late afternoon to this morning. And then this morning, they got another demand for a brief by the Fourth Circuit for this afternoon. So they immediately had to, within 3 hours, turn around another brief. And it's just filled with people who care. They care. They care about people's right to vote. They care about victims of sexual assault achieving justice in the courts. They care about the mom who draws water from the Cape Fear River, not having to worry about their child getting sick. They just care about people, and to be with so many other people who share those values and are dedicated to advancing them, understanding that even though we've made a lot of progress on a lot of different fronts in these last 4 years, on December 31st, 2020, we will not have solved them all. And so we want to keep at this work. And that's why I'm running for re-election. And that's why I am incredibly appreciative of you, Heather, and you, Becky. You're a hardcore one, Becky. I mean, you went to UVA, you're not even a Tar Heel like the other people on here. And yet you're chiming in from Portland, Oregon to help us out here in North Carolina. Both of you are just awesome. And I am so, so grateful.
Well, thanks, Josh. Thanks for taking some time with Becky and I. And I think if anybody has anything that you really want to ask Josh, now is the time. We're going to close this up in just a few minutes, but we thought that was fair since everybody, spending their Friday night with us and bought tickets to be part of it. If there was anybody that truly wanted to ask you anything, that they would have an opportunity to. So Anna, I will let you kind of take the reins on that, or unmuting anybody that has anything they want to ask.
So
Yeah.
I have a question. What does it mean to be like a good leader? Because sometimes like I have that in the back of my mind, because I used to be like a cross country and track captain back in high school, and I just graduated college as well too.
Good for you, Connor. Well, Becky, you were captain of the World Cup. Take that answer. What do you think made you successful as a leader for the national team?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, but I think an important thing is to have standards and to be willing to hold people accountable to those standards. And then another big part of it, I think, is empathy and compassion, and really knowing the people that are in your group and trying to know what makes them tick and what makes them work, and working within those boundaries.
And I would say
thank you so much, by the way, too, Becky.
The only thing I would add is that I agree with that entirely, is that, hold yourself to a high standard too, because that makes it easier to attract other talented people. And the more talent you have around you, the less you have to hold them accountable, because they hold themselves accountable.
Yeah, very true.
Heather, do you want to add anything on that? No. Okay.
I think you guys nailed it. I think, yeah, I mean, be authentic. I mean, people see through things eventually, I think. But like you said, Josh, I think that if you hold yourself to a high standard and you live with dignity and decency, I think that people see that, and I think that you've led the state that way thus far, and it's I know how Becky and I try to approach ourselves every day.
Nice.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. If anyone wants to jump into the conversation, we would love that, but we also want to be respectful of folks' time. So,
hey, Josh, this is James Barkley, Carolyn's husband, Allison's father. How are you?
Excellent. I'm so grateful for Allison. Thank you.
Well, we are particularly grateful for her as well. So as a practicing lawyer for 31 years, I wanted to ask you quickly about the current Supreme Court nomination process, and assuming that Judge Barrett gets seated on the bench, your approach to continuing to encourage people to have faith in the judiciary. It's one of the challenges I think is we lawyers have, and I'm curious about how you deal with that and think about that. I realize you're mostly working, below that level, but
it's a hard question. I've had the same question asked of me actually like 3 times in the last 2 days, and it has to do with our politics generally, but it's the same concept as within the judiciary. We're so divided right now. The president at every turn tries to cleave divisions among us and put them into his people and not his people, his states and not his states, his America and not America. And the problem is that he's been enabled by Republicans in the U.S. Congress, so that they're doing things that have been very damaging to the country in many ways, whether it's policy or sort of norms, democratic norms of how our government operates. And so the Democrats, if they get back in power, are going to be justifiably concerned about balancing the state of government, the ship of government, and getting it back on course. But inevitably in doing that, then the Republicans are going to screech and say, well, you're just doing things this way, having done many more egregious acts in the preceding years. And so I am genuinely concerned about how we get out of this trap where one side operates with no constraint, maximizing their power to achieve political ends, irrespective of the means, and the other side is supposed to be the one that upholds democratic norms. And it's a lot of pressure on Biden, but I think he's unique among Democrats of being able to try to help us get there. To me, whenever I see a problem, I try to analyze it and develop a strategy and execute, attack it. And generally, I'm able to do that and see a path. I don't always see it clearly, perfectly, and I certainly benefit from the consultation of smart people like Seth, but I generally sort of know what the answer is. And on this one, I don't see it. And so I'm just praying that Joe Biden does, and that he can somehow both preserve our democracy and restore balance and attack the fundamental elements of our structure that is anti-democratic, because we pride ourselves on a democracy, but the Senate isn't a democratic institution. The filibuster isn't a democratic institution. The Electoral College isn't a democratic institution. These things end up creating real problems for defeating the will of the mass, the majority. And so I hope he can somehow both address some of the structural deficiencies in our national democratic form of government, but at the same time help us come together. And I just think that's an inordinately large task. And I don't have the answer. I wish I did.
appreciate that.
It's definitely a complicated one, but hopefully we won't be as complicated in North Carolina, Josh, and hopefully it will be a victory for you and for the entire ticket But I want to thank everybody for joining, even if you are, on the other side in this election. I think that it's just absolutely critical for us to learn, for us to keep open minds, and for us to be active citizens. So I appreciate everybody that came on board, no matter where you're coming from. And if you are a North Carolina citizen, I hope that you are getting out to vote. And I suggest voting for Josh Stein. I really appreciate your time, Josh. And I appreciate the time of everybody else that jumped on. So keep it up, and let's continue to fight for good together.
Thanks, everybody.
And thanks, Becky.
Becky, you're awesome. Heather, you're awesome.
Thanks,
Seth, you're
guys.
awesome. Thanks.
All right.
I just wanted to say thank you. Just wanted to say thank you. Good job.
Thank
you. Guys did good.
you.
Thank you, guys.